What we've been in search of for centuries has never been outside of ourselves. It lays within us. It's the essence of who we are. Knowing the self is the elixir for eternal life, the Holy Grail. The classic question, who am I, has already been answered. The silence within holds the answer to this question and many others, such as why am I here, what is my purpose, and what is my true relationship with God. We awaken by going into the silence. The silence is a place that lives inside of us, beneath our minds. It's independent of our thoughts, thinking, body, and emotions. By resting our full attention inward and toward the heart, we land into this place. Within the silence, we discover the eternal life of God. The collective consciousness has evolved to a point that we can readily access our relationship with the divine. A critical point in our evolution has arrived. We know something is missing, and we want and need more. We long to be at peace. The need to be at peace has grown immensely. And the peace we're striving for does not reside in our mind. It lives within the silence. By creating a relationship with the silence that lives within, we expand our consciousness and the consciousness of the world. Consciousness is an important topic. It's important because what the world needs more than ever is consciousness. We need conscious teachers, doctors, politicians, and most importantly, we need the mass population to become conscious. For when we become conscious, we naturally begin to connect with the world in a different way.
Ned, why do we need to raise consciousness?
We need to raise consciousness in the world because we're living in a time of great uncertainty. Never before in our lives have we ever been so uncertain of our future. So we're in this sort of limbo transitioning state. And what I'm seeing and what I've experienced in myself is that in this time of transition, when we're so uncertain of the future, it's a time when we can go deeply into our minds. And the next thing I know, the deeper I go into my mind, the more it brings up emotions in me. And the more I stay in my mind, the deeper and the more dark things get. So I see this time where there's a lot of people that are so deep into the forest of their mind, and raising consciousness is about looking at our mind, our body, and our spirit. Now, when we think about the mind, when we become more conscious of what's going on in our mind, we start to learn how to pull back from some of the dialogues that are happening. When we're unconscious of the mind, we may get lost in our dialogues, continuously chewing through our thoughts, hour after hour, day after day. And as we become more conscious in our minds, we learn how to stop the dialogues before they start to spiral us into these places of not feeling well or panicked about the future. Mm-hmm. So becoming more conscious of what's going on in your mind is really important at this time. And the next step is to learn how to set down those dialogues that are happening in your head so that they're not controlling your experience from day to day. And then the next step is our bodies, our emotions that arise. I think it's so important at this time that we don't go into our emotions so deeply, and the emotion, especially the emotion of fear, because a lot of people are very fearful because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what the future holds.
You're also feeding off of everyone else that they're listening to.
Absolutely.
Even if they're not conscious of it.
I think a lot of us are feeding off of each other. Mm-hmm. We're feeding off each other's fears. We're feeding off of each other's thoughts. So I feel at this time it's so important for us to become more conscious of what we're feeling and recognize the fact that we are not our feelings. Our feelings come up in the body as information. It's telling us something, but it doesn't make up the sum of who we are. And now the last step is our spirit, because we are body, mind, and spirit. At this time, there couldn't be a more crucial time for us to go deep into the spirit of who we are. When we go into our spirit, we bring up the divine essence of who we are. Mm-hmm. And the more we get to know who we are on a spirit level, the more peace we can bring into our lives.
I think that's the quiet that we need, because we can't get it outside in our environment, in our home. It's the only way is to go inside. It's the safest place that there is if you're feeling unsafe, is going internally and
I think that's the key thing. You said the quiet we need. Mm-hmm. So going into that silent place in you, we automatically lower the noise. If you walk into a room and there's 100 people speaking and there's 4 loud talkers in the room is just completely filled with noise. Now if those 4 loud talkers suddenly stop talking, there's a contrast in how quiet the environment becomes. And when we learn to go into that interior silence inside of ourselves that's beneath our mind, it's like cutting out the loud talkers in a room. The solitude and the quietness inside of ourselves just drops.
It's not just essential for balance or to calm our nervous systems, which need it extra right now. But there's wisdom in the silence. There's an intelligence, and really, again, the only place there is to really get answers, to find truth.
Within the silence, we access our greatest wisdom, and that's one of the most fundamental aspects of reaching in to the silence within ourselves. Our minds only know such a limited sliver of information, but the reality of the silence that lives within us, it has this vast amount of knowledge, and it has a foresight that extends through all of our past and all of our future. And what else can we draw from in this world that has the knowledge of all of our past and future combined? The silence within holds all that information. So it gives us that information in a live feed. From one moment to the next, we're in a live feed when we're accessing that.
We only have now anyway.
Another thing I feel that the world desperately needs is connection. A connection to ourselves and to connect with others. Since the pandemic, we've all been told to socially disconnect, and this has been a great detriment. However, long before the pandemic hit, social media started changing how we communicate and connect with each other. On social media, we display our lives like a highlight reel. We often post all the wonderful things we're doing. However, our highlight reels fail to display an authentic or accurate depiction of our lives. We've put on a mask and covered up all the parts about ourselves that we don't want others to see, hiding behind social media, masking our actual lives. The cyber barrier of social media creates distance between people. It allows us to hide behind our phones and laptops, giving us a false sense of connection. We have fewer real-time conversations and face-to-face interactions. Clicking like on a post or a one or two word comment has replaced meaningful engagement with our friends and family. We've been slowly socially distancing ourselves from each other over the last decade or more. I see a growing urgency for us to reverse social distancing. As we address social issues like Black Lives Matter, embracing the LGBTQ community, and the Every Child Matters movement regarding our Indigenous community, each one of these requires us to understand more, to accept diversity, and to embrace each other with respect and dignity. And the way out of all of this is to embrace each other with love and compassion, to communicate, seek to understand each other, and respect people's freedom of choice. By doing so, we can begin to reverse social distancing. Jeff, I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about connection and the importance of connection in our lives. You were telling me earlier about something that Ralph Thistle had shared with you.
Yes, he told me a story when I was in rehab. We were talking about connection, how we isolate, and that's where a lot of our problems come. And Ralph said, take a look at a tree. And if we plant a tree, it grows in our front lawn, but it's an unnatural planting. But all trees that are natural in a forest are all amongst each other, and the roots are entangled and everything. Like life needs a connection, a group and a connection. And when Ralph said that, it kind of clicked a little bit, right? And when we're isolated, it's an unnatural thing. When we're connected, that's how we're supposed to be. That's how life is supposed to work.
Mm-hmm. You know, that makes so much sense. And when I'm at my worst, I tend to isolate.
Absolutely.
I'll kind of cut off the whole world and just pull into myself.
It's a fight or flight response, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. And when I feel the best is when I actually am connecting with other people, when I'm making the connection with my friends and my family, and you know, it feels good.
And you're at your most natural as well when you're connected with people, right?
You know, I find it kind of an interesting thing that we unconsciously, when we meet somebody, oftentimes the first thing we do is we start looking for our likeness in that person. Mm-hmm. You ever notice you've done that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You meet someone for the first time and you start scanning them over, like, okay, I'm like that, I believe
I see something common, basically, and you start to associate with them, and there you got a connection with that person, right?
That's right. So I think the reason why that we quite often search for our connection, or we search for similarities in another person, is because at a core level there's unity. There's unity between you and me. Outside of our preferences in life, there's actually a bigger connection that you and I share.
For sure. And I think, well, if getting what you're getting at right, is we our differences are always exterior, like different opinions and stuff like that, but our true connections, we're all alike on the inside, and like we all desire the same things, and we just want to be happy and healthy, right? So
Yeah, exactly. And so I think if we start to, stop looking at our differences between people and start just embracing people, it will help us. And especially during these times, I feel connection is so important.
Absolutely.
And I feel like it's a time where, if we continuously take sides on world issues and political issues and then segregate ourselves because of the side we have chosen, it's not leading to us bridging and building community, creating deeper and deeper connections with each other.
You and I is a fantastic example of, as we spoke earlier, even though our views on some things might not be exact, but once again, our desires at the end of the day, what we need at the end of the day is the same thing. We need that connection. And
yeah, and I think we've, there is distinct differences between you and I, but
absolutely.
But the thing that we have is so much respect for each other.
Exactly.
Like I love hearing your perspective. I like your ideas, and I think your capacity to love and embrace the world is second to none. And
second to you.
Well, that's to be determined.
Yeah.
But no, and we share such a wonderful friendship. And in the past, I may have just said, I can't find my similarity with you, so I'm going to push you out of my life.
Right.
I would have drawn these invisible lines in my mind and segregated myself.
Exactly what I would have done. Like I would have heard the word God or something, and I would have shied away from you. But it's not about that. It's about us. It's about mutual respect and how we get to the place we want to be, I think.
Yeah. And now, so what are your thoughts? What do you think is the most important thing that people need to hear right now outside of this conversation? What's the most important thing that you think people should think about?
We need to focus on what we can all agree on, which is being healthy and happy, and not on what we all disagree on. I think there's so much in this world that we all disagree on, and there's different opinions, and let people have their opinions, respect their opinions, or ignore them. But at the end of the day, we are all one species and one being. We're all on this planet, and let's make the best of it. And as you always say, love each other, be love. Yeah, for sure.
And you were mentioning earlier about we all stand on the same ground.
Yes, absolutely. And no matter where Ned Burwell is, no matter where Jeff Roberts are, our feet are touching the same ground. No matter my boss who makes millions a year is, where I am, we're all on the same ground. We're all equal at the end of the day. And we just need to learn to connect more socially and just be who we are.
So my thing is, I'd like to inspire any of you who are watching this video to reach into learning how to embrace other people. Embrace somebody who's radically different than you. Embrace a stranger whom you don't even know. And see what comes out of that by making that connection. You'll be surprised. Like, there's been so many times in my life where I've randomly connected with strangers or people that I don't know that I would ever have anything in common with, but by making that initial outreach or reaching out to make a connection, so many beautiful things have come about. We can start to make deeper and deeper connections with each other, and I think it really starts with stopping our judgments, getting out of our heads, and meeting people heart to heart.
And it takes work too, but I constantly try to open myself up more and more each day, and just try to improve on it each day.
And it's life isn't about perfection, it's about just showing up and doing our best.
It's important to remember that the future seldomly matches the made-up reality in our minds. Our mind often thinks in absolutes, or black and white. However, life is full of colors, blacks, whites, and grays. If you find yourself thinking the worst, or making up false realities in your mind, I invite you to let all of that go. Stay present and responsive to the moment at hand, rather than a future reality that may never come to pass. This is a time for us all to raise our consciousness and to reach deeply into connecting with ourselves. Rest in the silence of your heart. This helps us connect with ourselves. And next, I feel it's important for us all to take some time to connect with the people in our lives. Life moves at the pace of perfection. Times of darkness might feel out of order and so wrong. However, on the other side of darkness comes light, growth, and opportunity. Allow nothing or no one to create distance between you and the world, for we need each other. You matter, and we matter.